Well, it would not be a Fresh Outlook show without some of the serious and offbeat developments that come on a weekly basis, and this week is no exception. Sticking around for our lightning round are Jeanette Hoffman, Yohuru Williams, and Bill Rosenberg. Thank you for joining us. Come back. All right, so let's start with one of the top stories today. Apple introduced its iWatch. I think pretty much a shrug. There were a lot of orders, but what's the difference between your smartphone and looking down like Dick Tracy? What's the difference?
It's a lot cooler.
Okay, it has a cool
and it's
factor.
a lot more expensive, right?
It is, yes.
But no, I think it's the next iteration of iPhones, right? Or Apple hopes that it will be, that technology under watch.
But isn't it just the variation of the screen was this big? We went bigger for the tablet. We have the computer. We have the laptop. Now we're making it really small. I mean, well, what's innovative?
I would add, just looking at this panel right here, if we all just go like this,
yeah.
Okay, only one of us is wearing a watch.
That's my
okay.
watch right there.
Younger people, I'm not saying that you're not, because I'm probably
older than you. I think that's what you said, Bill.
No, because I'm older than you. They use their iPhones as their watch.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's not only is it your watch, it's your timer and everything else. So what happens is, for you, it's more of a style piece. You know, you have a very attractive watch.
Thank you.
So if people are thinking their Apple phone or their whatever company is going to come out is a style piece, they're going to want to do it. But really, the technology, in large part, is being carried around by every person in their pocket.
Well, don't you think it look a little nerdy or cool? It's a fine line between looking down at your watch and talking to you. Is it cool or nerdy?
It's like the Google Glass has gone away.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and the nanotechnology is great, but again, part of what you're talking about is advertising. It's a high-end product. There'll be those who want to purchase this as a status symbol.
Right.
But for the vast majority of people, I completely agree with you, Bill. They have that technology in the form of the smartphone, and the moment where this would have been cool, you know, the age of Inspector Gadget or Agent 99, Dick Tracy,
right.
Well past that at this
point. And millennials don't remember Dick Tracy.
All right, quickly, what does that say about Apple? Are they out of ideas for the time being? Once Steve Jobs passed away, unfortunately, was that the end of it?
I think that was a mistake product. I think they already had it really well developed. And I think my prediction is it'll be out there for a year and it'll be like Google Glass.
Sort of like Google Glass.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, we learned something as well this week that Winston Churchill, in order to get the United States to enter World War II, actually offered the United States of America one of the very few copies of the Magna Carta, which came out in 1215, was written in 1215. There's only 4 copies known to mankind. Apparently he was ready to give it to President Roosevelt to be joined in the war effort, but then he found out that the British government really didn't own it. Right. So did we need at that point to be persuaded, or did we have to wait for Pearl Harbor to get involved? Seems to me Pearl Harbor did it.
I absolutely love this story for a couple of reasons.
Why?
I mean, it's an opportunity to talk about history, so that's great for history professors, political science folks. We're just over the moon over this. But, you know, I don't like the way that it was framed as a bribe. I think what Churchill was attempting to do was to get America to recognize its core democratic values. And an offer a Magna Carta at that point would have been like saying democracy, you know, our entire way of life is really at the centerpiece of this struggle. So it's actually a wonderful story about what we were fighting for in that moment and why Churchill felt comfortable in approaching the U.S. from that standpoint.
You make a very good point. It has been framed as a bribe, but maybe it was just a way to show, as you indicated, that this is what we stand for.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing piece of history. The Magna Carta, I think, is celebrating its 800th birthday, and so it's on display with some other interesting artifacts like King John's tooth and his thumb bone, which
we really need to see.
I don't know if we really need to see that, but I think it is just an amazing piece of history, and to see, you know, his notes and everything about how he was going to give this as I think it's a better gift to the United States.
Yeah. And by the way, the Magna Carta looks terrific at 800. Hasn't aged a bit. How about you, Bill, real quick?
Well, yeah, I would say number one, I think there may be another element. I think your explanation is a terrific one, but there may have also been a protective element because, you know, England was in the Blitz. Could get destroyed in the United States. It may have been a safer place to hold it. But Roosevelt was already on board. He wanted to do Lend-Lease. He already wanted to help them, but he was being constrained by domestic politics in the United States.
The BBC, staying in the jolly old England, the BBC is giving away 1 million microcomputers to 11 and 12-year-old students. They want students to learn coding. They say that is the future, maybe even more important than writing. It's something Bill Gates and Melinda Gates have done on a smaller scale, but is that where we're going? I don't see a lot of kids. When I get a letter from a kid who's actually written something, it's appalling, and the grammar is awful.
You know, one of the things that I found really remarkable, I have 2 children, one's 28, one's 15 or 16 now. My 16-year-old was never taught cursive writing. My 28-year-old was the last year in New Jersey in our school system where they taught them how to do cursive writing. So students, young people today, they can't write, they can only print. So you're really talking about a technological sort of line that's really awesome. So if they're going to go sign a check, you know, maybe they know how to sign their name, but that's about it. And I think the idea about these computers is an example really of what's been happening in the United States with STEM, okay, with science and math training.
Technology.
So what happens is I think Great Britain's probably trying to figure out a way to keep themselves technologically relevant, because in a sense, they're falling behind, okay? They were a first world country, and they are not leading the pack anymore in terms of technology.
Well, you bring up a very good point. The education system in this country is sort of going through a transition now from what was, what sort of I learned, and maybe some on this panel learned as well, to what is being taught now. Would you agree?
Well, unfortunately, there's a narrative of failure that's being promoted by corporate education reformers who are pushing some of this idea that we need to be competitive with the rest of the world, and a way to do that is to introduce STEM and technology and to make sure that every child is trained in coding. The problem with that is that what are they going to be putting up on the net? Our hallmark has always been creativity and innovation, and so you want to make sure that there's a healthy balance in schools, that what we don't get is what we're seeing in England, or at least what England's trending toward, where you're putting everyone in this mindset that this is the only thing that students need to learn, that this is the most important thing. You know, our hallmark has always been innovation and creativity.
I find it amazing that, you know, you give a check to a young man or woman now, they don't know what they're looking at.
They don't know what to do with it, yeah.
And, you know, at some point they're going to have to sign their name on something or write a check or an amount or something, and it's pretty amazing. Let's go to a nice little visual here. Actually, we're going to go to something else, which is even more interesting. Robin Thicke, Pharrell Williams. Listen, I heard this song with Marvin Gaye years ago, and to me it's an exact ripoff. The estate of Marvin Gaye sued both Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams, saying that the song was exactly alike.
These two stories have a link.
Oh, do they?
With the ones you've already talked about, because Robin Thicke and Pharrell Williams even intimated that they don't really use writing down notes. They don't write music. It's all kind of a gestalt of the moment with different feels and things like that. So they're sampling, they're doing things like that. So as a result, modern music is different than music was 20 years ago. So these lawsuits, while they're you know, there's a need to have them in many cases, maybe aren't as clear-cut as the law is trying to make them out.
Right, and I think determining copyright infringement, especially in this day and age of digital music, is really murky waters. And in pop music, as we know, there's only a few different chord progressions. So, you know, determining whether somebody was inspired or whether, you know, they ripped something off. I mean, back in, you know, with George Harrison and the Beatles, that song, you know, My Sweet Lord was determined to be He's So Fine. So this is something that's been going on for quite some time, but with digital music now, it's even trickier.
And yeah.
You turn to the lyrics, what rhymes with copy, copy. When I first heard that song, my first thought was Marvin Gaye.
Yeah,
but I have to agree with Bill. I do think that, and Jeanette, we live in a society now where music is very amorphous, and there are the influences, and I think part of what Pharrell Williams tried to argue unsuccessfully is that in this climate, that's what you can expect, because there are so many different musical influences.
He also tried to argue that, you know, he was working on a vibe, whatever the heck that is, you know what I mean? And he was channeling Marvin Gaye and so on and so forth.
And they actually said that if they would have simply put Marvin Gaye as a credit, the lawsuit probably would have gone nowhere.
Or mix some of it in with that as they were going along. They probably, everybody would have benefited. The estate of Marvin Gaye did benefit to the tune of $7.9 million, but a lot more money was made on that tune. So
if channeling means sampling, they got it right.
Yeah, exactly. the people who really made money on that were the lawyers. As you mentioned, had they done it the right way to start off with, it would have been a different story. This is an interesting story. Have you seen this? I'm sure you have. The attempted child abduction. Man, you see the video right now. Actually grabbed an infant, or I shouldn't say an infant, a 22-month-old, and his sister, the sister of the child, is racing after the guy who abducted the child, and she's screaming, hey, yelling, and so on. And the child was dropped, and the man fled, and they haven't caught him yet. But here's a situation with dramatic video where a little girl comes to the rescue of her sibling. Pretty dramatic stuff and interesting.
Horrifying but inspiring, especially when held up against another video that was released this week of a 14-year-old girl being beaten by students in New York City and no one intervened. This was a great affirmation of what happens when people are aware and get involved.
Now here's a young girl, really young, intervening, and maybe somebody a little older would have second thought. you know, maybe this is too dangerous for me to get involved
No,
with.
there's a brave little girl, and she's going to be a hero. She's going to be remembered for the rest of her life as saving.
It also raises
somebody.
the question, though, where was the adult supervisor in this? That
Well,
these
yeah,
young
that's-
children
yes.
were playing by themselves,
Yes.
and there's a backstory there. But yes, she
Well, this
certainly
is a
was
small
with-
town in Washington with 500 people where you think nothing like this can ever
Right.
happen.
And the fact is, it was a heroic thing, and she was trying to take care of her brother or sister. And this does happen. There have been
Yeah.
stories like this. I remember in Philadelphia, the same storyline happened about a year or so ago. So nothing bad about it. This is a great story, and it's a great ending.
This is also Pi Day. 3, 14, 15, which is the mathematical equation for pi. But before we even did that, I like apple. I don't know about you guys. What pie do you like?
Peach cobbler.
Peach cobbler.
I'm a pumpkin pie girl.
Pumpkin pie.
I'll
Yep.
go with blueberry.
See, I would have never thought that you were a pumpkin pie person. I love the
I love
apple.
all things pumpkin.
Now, we had the health segment before talking about the chemicals in it. If they could make a McRib pie,
Oh,
that is something I would really like. If we have some more time, can we see the alligator? Let's take a look at the alligator now. This was on a golf course in Florida. People are just playing golf. They estimate that this particular alligator was between 12 and 13 feet long. Near the hole, an easy putt right there for the alligator if it was so inclined to do. I've seen some strange stuff on a golf course a few times that I've played, gophers and snakes and so on. This probably scared the living.
You know, I have friends that have houses in Florida, so occasionally I go down and visit them. That's what I call the gimme. You don't even bother going over
Yeah.
the ball.
You don't want to play through an alligator. You can't play through the.
call it a hole in one, right, and walk away.
That's why I play basketball.
Yeah, you're not going to find that on a basketball
gators on the
court.
court.
No gators.
Well, we thank you very much for joining the ever popular lightning round here on the award-winning Fresh Outlook Show. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon. I'm Frank Cipolla. Until next time, enjoy your week.